Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, February 28th, 2020, and this is our weekly video. We'll take a look, see what's going on in the world of Chinese and Japanese and Asian art in general, see how auctions this past week did from things that we had put in the newsletter that were on eBay and Katawiki, and what's been going on over on the global member pages. All kinds of stuff happening. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to mention was I had gotten a couple of emails, and this is about the landing page, the homepage on the Bidamount.com website. It had evolved over time, lots of links, lots of stuff going in there, and we recognized that it got a little confusing. And somebody actually commented on the YouTube video last week that was there something we could do, and we've been working on it, as luck would have it, to clean it up. And this is what we've done, and I think you'll like it. Here's the landing page, and we've changed the layout entirely to make things a lot more accessible, a lot easier to get to, and I want to go through them quickly so you know. All right, on the left side, under the blue banners, you have stuff, the regular links to things to the newsletter page, to sign up for the newsletter page, and then the eBay Today page, the auction page, fixed prices and all that are in there. And then down here, you have links that we've added over the years that have non-Asian antiques. Some people collect more than Asian stuff. I know it's hard to imagine, but they do. And so that's now on there as a drop-down. And if you click any of the links, it takes you right to it. Same thing here. You just click on those tabs, and it gets you over there. And then also general antiques on Katawiki as well as on eBay. The a global auction members page, if you're logged in, if you've signed up, you just come here, click that link, and it takes you right over to the landing page. And on the right side, we've added in yellow is basically research information, things when you want to look up something. And we've added in here links to some of the blogs we've done that get a lot of traffic on Ming porcelain, the history of blue and white porcelain, Famille Rose, link to the catalogs and book section. There's over 500 of them in there right now. The forum page and all that. Okay, and then close that up, and you come down here, and we've added direct links. A lot of you that like to look up things at the auction houses to see how things went, we've done this. If you open this is the Christie's page. And if you click any of these links, they're already set up, the searches are already done, and you just click that, and it'll take you right over to Christie's, and you can check. It takes a second for it to load because it's got to pull in all the data, but there it is. This is all stuff from the Qianlong period. There's 711 auction results here, everything from jades to porcelain, you name it. And of course, on that site, once you get there, you can use the filters down the left-hand side to more specifically target what it is you're looking for. But this will get you in there quickly. And we've done the same for Sotheby's, Chinese art, okay? And the same for Japanese art at Sotheby's, okay? We've set that up. The other thing that we've done is we've added direct links to, they were on the site map page of the site, but now it's the Metropolitan Museum of Art archives of Chinese art and Japanese art that's now online. You can go there and look up things and research them. We have the Smithsonian. All right, we'll add the British Museum to this also as soon as they get their act together and their site starts to work. Right now, their site is a total train wreck. None of the links work. You can't look up anything very easily. This has been going on now for a couple of weeks. Maybe they fixed it. I haven't looked in the last day or two. But for some reason, the British Museum has an awful time keeping their website up to date. But this is the Smithsonian site, and if you've never used it, you really should. It is a great website, and they have lots of categories to look things up in, things that are in their collection, Qing pottery and porcelain, and you can click on it. It'll pull it up pretty quickly. Boom, boom, boom. There it is. All right. And you can go down through it and find things that you're looking for. There are also filters on there for doing additional homework and research. All right, so that's basically the changes, and also a link to the Palace Museum archives. All right, that one is a little tricky to use. You have to maneuver it a little bit because I think the way they've set it up is a bit outdated. All right, and then at the bottom of the page is the preview assistant and identification assistant links. For those of you that want to have things looked up or want to find out what something is, you can send us the images, and for $12 we'll tell you. And that works very well. We get a lot of inquiries every week. It's amazing. And then, of course, there's the sign up for those of you that want to take part and be a member of the global auction pages. All right. So let's take a look and see what's going on. What have we been up to this week? Sorry about the long intro. Oh, one of the things we did a blog this week on collecting Japanese pottery and porcelain and my view of it. I collect both Chinese and Japanese things. And I think Japanese porcelains and objects represent an amazing value in the market. If you're interested in Asian art and you want to broaden your horizon, you love Chinese stuff, you ought to take a look at some Japanese things as well. It'll give you an interesting perspective and how the two countries interacted, how things came into popularity there. And they are a relative bargain compared to what's happened to the Chinese market, because as you know, the speculator side, the people who weren't really investors, collectors, but were investors that were buying the Japanese market for art about 20 years ago, got burned because the Japanese economy slid out from under them, and the values of things went down, fortunately for collectors, so they could once again resume buying. And we put in some examples in here of great things that you can buy that are Japanese that don't sell for the top of the line stuff that doesn't sell for anywhere near what the millions of dollars worth of porcelains bring in the Chinese realm, but all equally good quality. Really great stuff. And here's just some examples right here. And you ought to look into it. That's all. I'm not telling you have to, but it's an interesting way to gain a bigger appreciation of the Asia world, Asian art, and so forth. All right, now let's take a look and see what went on this week. All right, here. This was Josh Chamberlain had a big sale up, and he had a number of his things did extremely well, and he had some really wonderful things. And this was a pair of bronze mixed metal vases with enameling that he had up last week. These were big. These were 14 inches tall. Very nice looking pair of vases. And they ended up doing okay, but represent, like I said, I was just talking about Japanese things, a great value. $1,260 for this big pair of Meiji bronzes, beautifully done, top quality metalwork, just great, and very, very attractive. And then moseying on over here was a robe. This wasn't one of Josh's, it was somebody else, but a very interesting robe. Unfortunately, they didn't flatten it out very well when they took the pictures, so it looked awfully wrinkly. But this was a very unusual robe with an unusual ground color, that cocoa brown that you see sometimes on these 19th century robes. This was a good one. It didn't have a lot of wear. It had a few bits of staining on the inside, which is typical. Split at the top of the liner and so forth. But the needlework on this was really good. And a lot of people loved it, as it was sort of unusual. And it went for $6,208, which I don't think was a bad price for that, because it was a very interesting robe. Oh yeah, the other thing is, if you sell silks and textiles, we included a section on those drop-down menus on the landing page, I meant to mention, of just silks, because a lot of you really are into silks, and they give you all the prices and what things sell for from both companies, so you can check it out. And then on to this, the Chinese smoking set. The seller wasn't sure whether this was Chinese or Japanese, so he sort of, the person just said, oh, it could be one or the other, Japanese/Chinese. But when you looked over here and you saw this carved bat handle, you know right away it's Chinese. At any rate, there it is. A nice metalwork, but this was an interesting smoking set, early 20th century, and it did pretty well. It brought $918 because it had jade on it, cloisonne. This was sort of a Rolls-Royce version, top-of-the-line model of a 20th century smoking set, probably done, I would think, between 1910 and the 1930s. All right, and then on to this, the big famille rose vase with the soldiers riding horses, the ruffled rim around the top. Here's a picture of the foot rim, very typical of late Qing examples. Even early Republic pieces had the same type of foot on them, kind of brown and muddy. Just so you know, we're working on a blog post, and we're assembling hundreds of pictures of foot rims, and we're going to put them on a blog so that you can use it as a reference, sort of one of the ways you can date porcelain. And that'll probably be getting finished next week or so. We've been working on the pictures. That's one of the things we've been working on. We may put it in a video. We may work it out into a video too, because foot rims can be a very useful tool. All right, now on to this, the decorated inscribed bowl. Nice example. Had a rain mark on the bottom and all that business. Okay, and let's see, it brought $1,105, but it was a beautifully done bowl. And it had the, let's see here, what are the figures? What else did he tell? What size was it? 10 inches across. He sold this as a early 20th century bowl, which it could be. It could also be late Qing. Very difficult to tell. The decoration, the way the faces are drawn, tend to look a little bit early 20th century. I don't think the rain mark is right on this. I think it's a early 20th century piece, as he said. All right. Now on to this, the transitional bowl with the heron in the middle. This was a nifty little bowl. It had a Ming mark on it. It wasn't Ming, early Ming. It didn't go with the mark, but a very nice example. Here's a picture of the back, okay, with that mark out of period for that. But at any rate, it did well. It brought $457. This was something being sold. He's a good dealer. He doesn't come on a lot. It's Dr. Godfrog. I think he has a new username for some reason in the last few months. I don't know why. But at any rate, it's a very nice bowl, and it did fine. $457. And then on to this really pretty late Yongchen or early Qianlong rooster plate with that very nice clear yellow here in the middle covering the bird, and these very deep ruby red enamels, very nicely done. It was an excellent looking bowl. It had one minor firing flaw right here, a little dimple in the middle, but other than that, it looked to be in quite good shape. Had a couple of nicks on the foot rim, which is fairly typical of these. Here's a picture of the back. All right. But in the end, it did okay. It brought $278. I think that was a very reasonable price for these. There was one that was on here a few weeks ago that was almost identical, and I think it sold for about like $400 and change. So prices do vary week to week. As I always say, leave a bid on things. And then on to this, the Femiver Kongxi Pagoda plate with the rider. I like this, the yellow horse, and this is a nice pattern. Very attractive enameling, and it brought $2,476, which wasn't a huge surprise. This is sort of an unusual plate, and I forget how big it was. The size does matter. He thought it was ages 18th century or possibly early 19th century. It's 9.5 inches, and let's take a look here. Let's take a look at the back of this thing. No, it's a Kangxi plate. Okay. Any rate, it brought $2,476, so a lot of people thought it was probably Kangxi. But he was being, this is Handy's Antiques, and they do tend to be conservative on dates. All right. And then over to this. This was something that the Juice Chamberlain Antiques had up, and I commented on it last week. I thought it was a really wonderful later 18th century export plate with crabs and spotted deer and farm animals around the rim. A very unusual selection of patterns for that. Really is. It was obviously part of a very expensive export service that went to probably Europe. And this cup and saucer sold for $406. But as I mentioned last week, you're not going to find this pattern very often. It's a very unusual type and was custom done. All right, and then on to this. This was another dragon robe, late Qing robe. It was up, and very nice gilded dragons on it. Good needlework throughout. Good bright color, good strong colors. Not a lot of wear evident on it. It looks like it's probably was stored for a long time. Every once in a while, if you get into a house that has robes that have been in storage, you're collecting them, you'll find that the colors are vibrant. And this one brought $2,550, which is a little on the low side for one of these. Not sure why, but anyway, somebody got a good buy, I think. And then over here to these two Hu-formed vases, Guangzhou mark. They were drilled in the bottom. They have unglazed biscuit bottoms, but these were quite nice. And this type with these black edges do turn up. There was one that went through Christie's a couple of years ago, I remember, and I think it sold for around $11,000 or $12,000. But these two have been drilled, and that has a big impact on price. Here they are, nicely glazed. Let's get over. It had a repair on the handle, and here are the bottoms. Okay, marked China, which is not unusual on these, and especially if they were exported. Apparently, they were $85 at one point. Somebody made lamps out of them. And here's the mark, drilled right through it. But they were good, nice examples, and they brought $11,211. And again, it's because they were drilled and there was a repair to a handle. Had they been perfect, they probably would have brought $25,000 or so. All right, and then on to this, the jade plaque, a nice jade pendant, late Qing, but good quality carving, the archaistic border with bats and Shao characters and so forth, and it did pretty well. It brought $2,850. Really pretty, though. Nice piece of jade. And then on to this. This was that big transitional vase that they had up. A very nice example. He thought it was 19th century. I actually talked to him about it. And I think it was probably Republic. I think it was a very, very good Republic piece. With the way these are drawn, that sort of inky drawing on there, it was a style that was done in the Republic period, much more than in the Qing Dynasty. And nice big piece. This thing was huge. And in the end, it did quite well. It brought $10,100. But a very nice and unusual example. I couldn't think of another one I'd seen in this form. And judging by the decoration and foot rim, it was clearly an old one. All right, and then on to this, the European scene, 18th century Qianlong export plate. Very interesting thing with the interior. Has a Dutch scene with windmills in the background. See if we can get over to a better shot of that. There we go. And Europeans on a shore within a Rococo border, iron red and all that good business here. And looks like there's something in the water. I can't tell what it looks like, a giant boat or a shell or something. Had a nick out of the corner right there. The guy did a good job photographing these. Here's a picture of the back, the foot rim. All right, and it did okay, but not a lot. If you had a hairline and a chip in it, but if you like European subject matter, export plates. It's a very specific collector category. This was a nice example. It was a good example and very reasonable. Okay, this was sold by a dealer down in Connecticut, and so it was $155 and $20 shipping to here. Not bad. And then on to this bamboo carved faux bamboo brush pot in ebonized wood. Just beautiful example on a nice stand. I just loved this. I thought this was great. And it ended up doing pretty well. It brought $1,995. When we first saw it, it was like at $20 or something. I thought, wow, that's a great thing. And it caught on. I think the market always finds them. If the things are listed properly, if you follow the Cassini recommendations we did a video on it, your items get a lot of good exposure and they do pretty well. And then on to this, the Wan Li plate. There it is. And this was a nice one, deer pattern. It's a classical type of Wan Li dish. There's nothing unusual about it, but it was a good, solid example. Had a couple of firing flaws on it. It had the typical rim flips, but it did have a slightly shaped rim, which was nice. And it ended up going for just $165. Not bad. Not bad at all. If you like Wan Li pieces, the prices right now are very favorable. And then over to this. I'm including this just as an example because, a lot of people love Chinese stuff. They love to collect porcelain, Japanese porcelain. And sometimes if they're perfect, they may be out of your price range a little bit, but you still enjoy collecting and you want to study the pieces. This was your chance. This was a nice, absolutely authentic Kangxi dish that had been broken. And here's a picture of the back of it. It had been drilled and hung and so forth. Usually when you see these drill holes and all these breaks, you can picture what happened. It slipped off the wall at one point and hit the ground and broke into, in this case, 3 pieces. But this was a nice, legitimate Wucai plate, and it went for just $10. Okay, and the reality is that if you bought this plate, you can clean those hairlines up and get them closed up properly. It won't cost you hardly a thing, and it'll look perfect. It'll be a nice display piece, and you're only out $10 plus a little shipping. Okay, this was an 8-inch plate. All right. So there are ways you can collect, even if you're not, a Chinese billionaire, which is very nice. And then on to this Famille Rose plate with gilded flowers, gilded peonies and flowers on it. Very, very pretty plate. Something went on down here. It was a white enamel, and it sort of softened over the years. I don't know why. It may just be the light he was using too, but this is white enamel on the porcelain. And here's a picture of the foot rim. Again, you have that nice V-shaped foot, very clean, typical 18th century wear. And it went for $263, which is about right. It's a very nice plate. I like the rim with the ducks and the geese and so forth in it. And how big was this? This was 9 inches also. That's sort of a typical size, by the way. Lots of plates are 9 inches. And let's mosey on over to here. The Famille Rose, big pair of Famille Rose vases with Qilong and dragons on them. Good looking pair. These weren't huge, but they were nice looking. Good clean colors. These were pretty much what you see for the Nonya Straits porcelains in particular. It was in Malaysia, Indonesia, and all that. And these went for $508. All right, and it was because of the coloring, because these were not big. These were only 10 inches tall. They were quite small. All right, and they did just fine. And then on to this, the 18th century spittoon or incense burner, actually, is what it is. With a dragon and pearl decorated with the brown dressing on the rim. Very typical example. Done a lot like the Kangxi examples. I think this one was probably later, though, judging by looking at it. All right, in the bottom, get around to the bottom of it. Hold on. There it is. This is more of an 18th century foot than a Kangxi foot. Kangxi is 18th century, but later. This was done later. And it brought $638. And then on to this, another really attractive European subject, gilt-rimmed export cup and saucer, probably done around 1770 or so, 75. But the gilding on it was in really good condition. Usually by now, this gilding is all worn. When they had these sort of gilt brocade-rimmed plates, you'd see a lot of wear that would become obvious. And these cups look pretty good. The saucer had a little wear here from probably just things rubbing against it, but the rest of it looked fine. And it brought just $78, okay? Has a hairline, sold as is, but still, nice early example of European export, and for a very reasonable price. If you're a collector, this is the kind of thing you want to look for. Look for rarity over condition as much as you can. All right, and then on to this, the silk hanging. These were sometimes used as wedding hangings and so forth. Very, very pretty, nice groundwork, 19th century, probably the second half of the 19th century. Very good facial expressions on the kids, one smiling and one sort of pursing, pushing up his nose a little bit. It's really fun. They're carrying their banners. And it went for $910. The silk market seems to be quite vibrant. There's always a steady buyers out there for good silks. Really are. And then on to this, the Kangxi bowl, done sort of in the Ming style, but it's a Kangxi example. Nice deep dark cobalt blue. Here's a picture of the foot rim on it. It's a little rustic, but it was maybe provincially thrown. And here's a picture of the interior. And it did pretty well at the end. It brought $518, but it was an interesting bowl. It was an interesting bowl. And then we'll pop over to this. This was on Katawiki last week, this leaf-form Kosemitsuki dish. Very unusual. A few of these have been around in the last few months. I noticed them. But this is a nice one. I love the mountain scene with the horses and the deer is very typical with a little inscription. And this did pretty well. It ended up selling for 3,975 euros, so that's over $4,000, $4,400 or so, but very unusual and a rare form. And then on to this, the dragon. I like this. I like dragon paintings, and this is it's a Japanese painting, but it was done in sort of the style of the Song Dynasty Chinese dragons ascending out of the clouds and so forth. This one did $410. If it was Chinese, it probably would have brought $4,000. There's an example right there. Beautifully done, beautiful ink work. The Japanese were just phenomenal in the late Edo, early Meiji period with their brushwork and ink work. The precision was incredible. And then over here to this. Do you remember these? These were that big pair of Quanjanware planters out of the estate in Rhode Island. And I thought they'd bring $3,000 to $5,000. Boy, was I wrong. These brought $18,000. All right. Sometimes that happens, but they were very rare. And after I did the video last week, I kept trying to think of where I had seen another pair of these over the years. And my answer was I don't think I had. I'd seen similarly decorated pieces, but a big oval pair of these is extremely unusual. Here's a picture of the base, signed, nice-looking liners in them, but beautifully painted, classical Quanjanware, and these are early. And there's the price, $18,000 on the nose with 73 bids. All right, I love his tagline, used but well taken care of. All right, and now on to here. This was that nice brush pot, that early 19th century brush pot that was up. I love this, done in the Qianlong style, the Qianlong manner. This is like as I said last week, they do jade brush pots very often in this style, and this was a nice example, and it ended up doing pretty well. It brought $1,988, but I'm not at all surprised. That was just the lovely scholar's object. And then over on the global pages, there were some interesting things. You remember we were talking about the VOC plates last week because there was a pair of them that sold for about $6,000. Well, here's a Japanese one, early Arita, 1680s. Always keeping in mind that the Japanese didn't make any porcelain until the late 1500s. Okay, they didn't know how to do it. They made a lot of pottery, of course, but they didn't make any porcelain. And when they began making porcelain, they began doing things like this, very much in the manner of the Chinese examples, the Wan Li pieces from a slightly earlier time. And here's a picture of the back of it. This was a nice plate, ended up selling for $2,200. And then there was this. These I think, were a bargain. These were at an auction over in Europe. Very nice pair of 18th century blue and white dishes with these long attenuated ferns, which is very unusual, and then flowers coming up the other side. It was an interesting selection by the painter with the pairings of these brown dress rims, and these went for 160 euros, which I think was an absolute steal. They were about 9.5 inches wide each. These are also on the global pages. And then this Kangxi dish. This was, I think, a great buy for someone. It went for $150 or so, but nice example, very well done, nice decoration, and didn't break the bank, which is always a good thing. And then this went for some money. This was a charger. It was about 39 centimeters wide, or 15 or so inches, 15 and a half, 6 inches, and 16 inches. But it's a pattern we've seen before with these beautiful sort of femme-vert decorations, iron red. And it was a bit of a bowl. It had some depth to it, but it was big. And this ended up selling for 4,200 euros. Nice example, though, if you collect these. And this was a charger. Chargers always bring a lot more, as we've discussed many times. And then onto this export-covered custard, or whatever the seller likes to call them. But these were made for export. Nice-looking top. I like the foot on this a lot, and I like the way it was decorated. 18th century, clearly. And this went for about 160 euros as well. But it was a nice buy if you're a Chinese export collector. It really is. And then what else was there? There was this teapot, 18th century teapot with the bird on it, and femme-vert decoration, blue enamels. Beautiful example. And this was very reasonable. This went for 300 euros right there. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. And the global pages will be updating those today as well. We're working out a schedule to do them regularly. And then there was the Shibayama. I included this actually in the little blog post I did about collecting Japanese stuff. A very nice piece of Shibayama. A beautiful example. Nice big sizes. I recall this thing was about 18 inches wide. And in the end, it did pretty well, but it just for the work in it, this was a bargain. 2,200 euros. But it was a beautiful example. And this was, how wide was this? 45 centimeters. So it was 18 inches in diameter. That was a big piece of Shibayama. And they also had this in the sale. Now, this was over in Austria. Beautiful pair of Shibayama cylinder pots with immortals on them, but top quality, really top quality, Meiji period work. And these sold for 2,200 euros. I think that was a great buy. And then the Kangxi iron red dish that was on another sale. This is a very well-known pattern. This particular pattern does turn up in Europe fairly often. But this time around, it was a pretty good buy for someone. It ended up selling for 180 euros. Not bad, because we've seen them on eBay bring $300 to $500 in that same exact size. Somebody got a nice buy. And then the Japanese relief work Meiji period vase with lions on it. This was terrific. I like it when they put animals, fish and lions and tigers reliefed off of big vases. But this was a nice one. The bronze had a very nice patina to it. And now let's see how this did. This brought 1,200 euros, which isn't bad. You remember last week there was another bronze that brought about 5,000 that was a very similar quality. And then onto this, the Kangxi Guglet with a ribbed body. Years ago, I had a Kendi that was exactly like this, only it had a spout coming out of the side. But this was a fairly popular form with these ribbed bodies, and then the neck, and then the swollen area up here to wrap a string around it when you want to seal up the bottle. And this did pretty well, but it didn't bring the world. It was a reasonable buy. 1,200 euros. Not bad at all. And then this, the Blanc de Chine incense burner. I love this. I thought this was a really good incense burner. This is 17th century or so, maybe early 18th, but spectacular quality. And it ended up selling for just 1,000 euros. So somebody got a very, very good buy, I think. All right, and then hopping over to what's coming up. This is something I threw in the newsletter this week. I like sort of interesting, very personal sorts of things. And this is a wonderful little plaque. It's inscribed on the back. I haven't taken the time yet to have somebody read it to me and tell me what it says. But very nice, low relief carving of a scholar visiting a farmer with a child in this beautiful pine tree in the mountains. And it's done very much like painted landscapes, but carved into wood. And the back of it's fully inscribed. Here it is. If you like interesting oddball things, you might want to check this out. It's up to $255. It closes. PUD has this. $255. It closes in 6 days. See how it does. I think it'll do pretty well because I think that's a very interesting little carving. And then on to these. There are two of these up right now, and this type of screen were made. Gilded screens were made in many sizes, from 6 or 8 inches tall to 20 inches tall. These are 30. There's two of these on here. The seller has them listed. They'll be in the newsletter. They're 36 inches tall, really big, and they look to be in great condition. They look rather nice. They're kind of grungy. They're late 19th, early 20th century. You know, they could have been done up to 1920, but judging by the backs of them and so forth. But beautiful quality. The quality of these is really good. But we'll see how they're doing. He says they're 19th century. I don't think they are. I think they're a little later. But they're up to $926. They feel that they're from the Straits area, which more would convince me that they were probably from the 1915 to 1930 era. But anyway, they're beautiful. And here's the other one. Very, very similar, almost exactly the same thing. And that's up right now. And that's up to a little bit less. But I think it'll catch up. But for now, that's where they are. All right. Sometimes people, when they see two of something up and they want to get them both, they'll hit one with a very big price and drive it up a little bit to get it up there, and then to discourage somebody from buying the other, because people that only buy pairs don't want just one. So it's sort of a bidding strategy. All right, now on to this, the Celadon ground Famille Rose Mandarin vase, mid-19th century, maybe a little before. Very good quality, nice gilded creatures on the neck if you like these. This vase was about 14 inches tall. It's up to $303 and has 4 days to go. That will be in the newsletter page. And then these popped up this week, a very nice pair of 1780s export covered jars with the dragon handles up the side. These are quite nice and they're big. They're about 14 inches tall. This is, let's see, it's got 7 days to go. They're already up to $820, expecting to bring 2,000 or 3,000. All right. And then on to this, the 9-inch tall Ming bronze. This is a good example. Nice patina on it. I always look at the surfaces. Here's a picture of the bottom. It had somebody had bolted the body back onto the base. It might have gotten knocked off. They do sometimes. So they did a little mend here to reattach him to the stand. But that's not a big deal. It's actually pretty common. And you can see that there's been maybe a lead repair on the back. If you see these things, they've had a little damage over the years. They often use lead to repair them, and they could color it to look like the bronze. It's not unusual, though. It's not unusual. All right, and this one is up to just $145. It closes Monday. It'll be in the newsletter page, but I think it's a pretty nice bronze, probably late 1500s, early 1600s. And then on to this is coming up is this gilt bronze with a little bit of pigment on it. Down here you can see. This is a provincial bronze, but it's nicely done. It's got a lot of wear to it. I wonder how it would clean up. And it's up to $167 and closes in a couple of days. All right, and then this is this closes in 1 day, 21 hours. This is over on Karuiki. closes Sunday, but it's a very nice Wanli dish with ribbons and flowers and so forth in the center. It's gotten quite a bit of interest. It's up to 361 euros already. Nice example. It's going to be a bunch of stuff from Katawiki this week. And then this is something you want to check out. If you like Republican vases and late Qing vases, this is a pretty good one. Unfortunately, the seller didn't bother to take it off the stand to show the base, which is, I think, not a smart idea. It probably says China under there. I suspect they often do. But he didn't include any other pictures, unfortunately. It's up to $366. Assume the base is marked China, and assume it's probably an unglazed biscuit base, probably. Not always. But it's a good example, and it's up to $366. I think this will do pretty well. I think it's got 4 days left. I think it'll go quite a bit beyond that, because it's a nice form. It's a heck of a pretty table lamp. Buy it as a lamp, put something in it. And then this is over on the global pages. It's a really nice Wanli large base. This thing's I think about 18 inches in diameter, but it's a bowl with this profusion of vines, lotus blossoms against a blue ground. It's very pretty, and it has sort of a nearly black outline if it isn't black, or a very, 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 very dark blue. So it gives it a nice relief effect. This is a good example. It's got precious objects and the cavettos running around the outside. And this closes, when does this end? This closes in 13 days. And as I said, it's on the member pages. And there's a bunch of stuff on there. A lot of stuff is closing today. So as I said at the beginning, we'll be updating it today. All right, but that's it. So check out the newsletter page. If you haven't subscribed to it yet, come over to Bidamount.com and sign up for it. You can sign up right off the homepage on the left side, as I mentioned. And the newsletter page itself has the box that you can click if you want to sign up and get notified each week when we update the page. All right, here, and it's right here. There it is. You just click that, sign in, do it. Subscribe to us here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. This is a long video today. Sorry about that. And have a great weekend. It's kind of chilly around here. The temperature was in the 50s earlier this week. Now we're back down into the freezing area. Oh, well. That's the way it goes. Okay? And have a great weekend. I hope you go to an auction or find out something out there you want to buy, and you buy it. All right. And remember, always leave a bid. Okay. See you next time. Bye-bye.